Thanks everybody who stood in line for this, and also welcome all our Twitch viewers. Thank you guys. Can't say anything back, but thank you. So today we're going to talk about the gorgeous world of Ixalan, and also towards the end of this we have a few special treats for you. So for you guys here in the room and for you Twitch viewers, look forward to that.
Stay tuned.
So Ixalan's a breathtaking plane. It has like lush jungles and scenic waterways and untold treasures. At its heart is the city of Araska, the lost city of gold, which is also home to the immortal sun, a legendary artifact that can grant untold powers. This world sounds good, sounds great, I like it. But how did it come to be? That's what we'll explore today. First, let's introduce our panelists. We have Jeremy Jarvis, Cynthia Sheppard, James Wyatt, and myself, Marissa Fulmer. You guys take a few minutes and tell us about what you do and what you did for Ixalan?
Sure. My name is Jeremy Jarvis. After 11 years working on the Magic card game, I am now franchise creative director for the property. And every world guide between Shards of Alara and Amonkhet was mine. I art directed that. This Ixalan, I was involved in world building, but this was the pass of the torch to Cynthia Sheppard.
Yay!
No pressure. Hi, I'm Cynthia Sheppard, Senior Art Director for Magic the Gathering and Ixalan's art lead. And fun fact, I used to be an illustrator, and I most recently illustrated the cat dragon from Commander 2017.
Don't clap for her. Don't do that. She also ruined Treasure Cruise.
That ship sank.
I'm James Wyatt. I'm a 1-dub, 1-1 human writer with tap, add 1,000 words to target manuscript. I was also the world building lead for Ixalan. I've been at Wizards for a very long time. After working on D&D for 14 years, I came and started working on Magic about 3 years ago. And Ixalan was one of the 3 first things that I started working on right away. The others being Shadows over Innistrad, Creative, and the Art of Magic the Gathering Zendikar. So, yeah.
And I'm Marissa Fulmer. I'm Magic R&D's Delta Team Manager, which means that I dealt with the schedules and processes and resources for Ixalan. So, boring stuff for me, yay!
She keeps us all alive.
Hey, boring stuff!
Never underestimate the value of having somebody to deal with all the boring stuff. Especially somebody who does it well and enjoys it.
We haven't found that person yet, but we'll keep looking. Okay, so that covers us for the time being. Before we dig into Ixalan too much, I want to know a little bit more about you guys. So I assume there's some Magic players out there. Magic players, everybody? Okay, so hands up if less than a year you've been playing Magic.
All right.
All right, way to go. Thank you. Thank you. How about more than 3 years? More than 3 years. Awesome. Oh, okay. That's a lot of hands. Rad. Okay, how many of you follow our story on the Magic website? Rad.
All right.
That is awesome. Thank you.
So I actually, that leads me to a couple questions, because James and I have long-standing disagreements about how our audience, our particular audience, consumes entertainment. So by show of hands, if you have read all of the Harry Potter novels, raise your hand. All right, great. If you have watched all of the Human Centipede movies, raise your hand. Those are my people. Those are mine. Okay. All right. I just needed to know.
Wow. Glad we figured that out. Okay, all right.
Wow, 5 minutes in and Jeremy broke me.
All right, so last question. There's 4 main groups on Ixalan World. We have pirates, we have merfolk, we have vampires, and we have dinos. So what I want to do is see where our loyalties lie here in the crowd. Who here are my pirates? Yar! Excellent. And the Merfolk? Very good, very good. Vampires, where are my vampires? And finally, who's with the dinos? Somehow I knew. Somehow I knew.
Part of the most fun that we had working on Ixalan was just listening to James Wyatt growl and say "arr" all the time in the office.
The number of times in a meeting I said, because it would be awesome. It's more than it should be.
That's not a campaign planning presentation.
Go figure. That's why I'm not on the brand team.
So speaking of teams,
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
How are our worlds made? Where does it all start, James?
Yeah, so one of the questions that creative people get asked a lot is, where do you get your ideas? And it turns out, for Magic at least, the answer is you take a lot of really smart and creative people, and people like me, and you put them in a room and let them bounce ideas around for hours and hours and hours. Pretty much everything we do at Wizards is a team effort. Somebody's got to be the
Multi-team.
person holding the gangplank, and somebody gets to be the one with the credits. Who walks down the gangplank, but ultimately everything we do as a team. And turns out creativity works pretty well that way.
Yeah, everybody in R&D and lots of people all over the building have been involved with Ixalan and still will be for a long time. It's every team in multiple combos. Very good. Okay, so what was the basic concept for Ixalan?
So we like to have a 5-year plan. You've probably heard people talk about this in the past. And so at any given point, Magic wants to have a 5-year plan about where we're going, what we're doing. So you may have noticed that recently we were like, yeah, we build one entire world a year. What takes Hollywood and video games 4 to 6 years to do? Let's do that twice. And so the 5-year plan turned into the 2.5-year plan. But in that planning stage, Ixalan was placeholdered by Jenna Helland as vampire conquistadors. That was the kind of elevator pitch of what if we had, what if we twisted that trope space into vampires from some unseen old world coming to new shores, breaching the shores, not looking necessarily for gold, but replace that with immortality, with blood, and also with gold. So that was the starting point.
So some of our worlds have easier to define starting points than others. Innistrad as Gothic horror world is pretty easy to wrap your brain around, and when you start diving into the trope space there, you find all sorts of things. It's really easy to identify, okay, the Universal horror movies, for example, werewolves and Creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and the ghost stories, all that stuff comes really naturally. With Vampire Conquistadors, okay, that's a great starting point. But when you start to explore that trope space, it leads you to some interesting places.
Like dinos?
Like dinosaurs. Naturally.
it overlaps in the Venn diagram somewhere.
conquistadors
James
were-
is actually drawn on his
Yeah,
iPad.
so I did a mind map, which I'm sure you can't see, as I was thinking about this. So you take the idea of conquistadors, and you pretty naturally get to the idea of, well, they need some place to come to, a new world, so to speak. And that's a pretty loaded historical concept, you might say. Problematic. So I love this piece because you think about Cortez landing in the New World and burning his ships behind him, and there's a 18th century woodcut that I can picture very clearly that shows the savages cowering in fear at these armored men with their weapons. And what we wanted, first of all, those men are vampires. And secondly, these aren't cowering savages you have here. These are badass warriors in steel armor and dinosaurs.
What we're looking at here is a tone plate that we generate. We love to generate these in-house because they're for internal salesmanship and explanation to other teams. We talked about, we're on the world building team, but there's the brand team, there's design, and early on, it was like, what's the relationship between these two groups here? Because you might easily mistake that just by, going for, oh, it's conquistadors. We know what conquistadors did in the past. But here, we wanted to speak to equal footing and the level of technology and everything, the type of armor that they had, and make them look both really cool.
So, exploring the trope space further. pretty early on, when I mentioned this was one of the first things I started working on 3 years ago, Jenna, who is my boss, as well as the architect of the vampire conquistador idea, she asked me to just kind of brainstorm around that trope space a little bit, building on work that Doug Beyer had already done. And Doug had taken the leap to the age of exploration. And you start thinking about the conquistadors in that broader context, and the tropes around exploration and finding new places. You get the search for El Dorado and delving into strange new worlds, and the lost world concept is really where the dinosaurs came out of. The fact that dinosaurs also dovetail dinosaur tail nicely with feathered motifs that you see in Native American or Central American, Mesoamerican cultures helps a lot. But then the age of exploration also leads you to pirates pretty naturally.
Can I just point out that James has drawn a little spike off of pirates that says skullduggery?
Skullduggery, swashbuckler, walk the plank, broadside. Yeah, once you get into trope space, you start finding all these things. Triskaidekaphobia for Innistrad, you know, skullduggery is yeah. Yeah, so that's how we end up with what might look like a hodgepodge of different concepts, but do all fit together into a coherent world.
But the vampire conquistadors are not always on top in this case, are
Exactly.
they?
So we get to see them on equal footing, or maybe on less equal footing, where they're getting mauled by dinosaurs.
I feel really sorry for the horse in this picture.
Or they're getting strung up by pirates, or they're having their stuff rummaged through by goblins, or their ships drowned by merfolk, or turned to stone by a planeswalker we all know and love.
Thanks, Frasca. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk about the interplay between game design and the creative. So first of all, which one's better, obviously? And how did those come together for Ixalan?
So can we talk about the colors and the amount of groups that used to be in this world?
Oh, yeah.
3, no 4, no 5.
No, it was 3, and then Conspiracy 2 happened. And stole the mechanic that was supposed to be here. True story. And then it's like, oh, Vampire Conquistadors are 2 words. That's not actually 249 cards. We should probably resolve. And then it became 5, 5 different groups, and then I don't even remember.
So,
4, 5, 4.
3, 5. So this is a great example of the interplay between world and game design, because the very first meeting of the exploratory design team, Mark Rosewater stood up and said, okay, we're going to do 4 factions because we need to prove that we can. Because Magic does everything in 5s, right? And
3s are acceptable, 5s are the normal. 4 does not get invited to Christmas. Like that is a really challenging number for Magic. It just is.
But we proved that we can. There's two color factions and 2 3-color factions, and it turns out to actually work. And it's something different that Magic has never done before. So I'm not quite sure who is paying off who in this illustration here. I think well, never mind.
It was supposed to be hush money for us, but here we are.
Yeah. That is an executive taking money out of our hand. It's actually not a payoff.
It's got a little magnet in his palm.
So we ended up with 4, and it started with pirates, vampires, and the dinosaur folk. And right at the time when I came into it, Merfolk were actually still part of the pirates. And I think that was the first meeting I walked into. I was like, whoa, what's happening here? And so all of a sudden, it became Merfolk splintered out. And we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah.
Well, and initially, the dinosaurs were separate from the Sun Empire.
Oh, I don't think I was in that meeting.
Yeah, so we had 3 factions plus
before
dinosaurs.
my time.
Yeah, and colors shifted around, and good times.
So eventually that all got solidified, and once that part is set in stone, we go into the next phase, which is the concept push.
My favorite part, actually.
Yeah, so it's super fun. So Jeremy actually did a really great presentation on the concept push at GDC earlier this year. But basically what it is it's our very high-paced, fast-paced sprint to get a bunch of art together to show what this world looks like.
We
And
sometimes literally lock the artists in a room and say, here's some pirate stuff, go. Get in there.
Yeah, and they're in there drawing their pictures with black sails up on the screen. That didn't
usually
happen.
by the end, the lights are off and they all look really strange. So for our concept push this time, I was looking for people who are obviously interested in the subject matter. We usually get a variety of artists that are, might have our ship person in this case, or someone that really loves pirates, and an environment specialist. And so we ended up with an awesome team. I wrote them down because there's a lot of them. So we had Steve Prescott, Chris Rallis, Alexi Briclo, Christine Choi, Darkin, along with contributions from Stephen Belladin and Chris Ron, and our two in-house concept artists, Sam Burley and Tyler Jacobson. So those are the folks that contributed to the next several slides you're going to see.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
Thanks.
This slide, the previous slide, was an illustration of the input for the concept push and the output. In the weeks leading up to the concept push, the writing team puts together a concept push document that talks about what are the things we need illustrated, what do we need out of the concept push, like what do vampires look like here. This is posing problems for the artists to solve, and I have to point that out because it's got words, and words are really important to me. And
Speaking of words,
then this next slide is here to point out that World Guides are not just about pretty pictures. The world building team also does a huge amount of work concurrent with and following the concept push to generate about, what did I say, 40,000 words?
40,000.
I just want to point out that I have never seen a horse with sharpened teeth before. I have seen all of those letters. At least once.
So every concept push, obviously has its own challenges. We showed that tone plate earlier that sort of solidified the relationship between the Sun Empire and the Vampire Conquistadors. And let's dig into the Vampire Conquistadors just a little bit more. So we've done vampires a lot in Magic. We saw them recently in Innistrad, where we blew them out as, the sort of European classic vampires that you think of, some Nosferatu types. But here, we rebranded them. We gave them a different job. And so I knew that I needed them to read as conquistadors at card level. And I knew that I wasn't going to get as many close-up, baring your fangs shots as we normally get on cards. So it ended up being what sounds like a very simple solution in the end, but it took us a while to get there. They have fangs on their helmets.
Pointy hats.
They have the classic conquistador helmet, but it's got 2 points. And we ended up carrying the 2-pointed motif through to some of their armor and their weapons. And you know what? I fell in love with those helmets. I had to make James put those helmets in every concept possible at card level. It's like, James, this concept doesn't have a helmet in it. What happened?
How can I tell if it's a vampire or a pirate? It doesn't have a hat.
Those are real talks that happen.
That was actually a real conversation. They also have a lot of gold for a group seeking a golden city. You want to tell us about that?
Well, so Jeremy mentioned early on we were trying to refine the concept of conquistador, so it's not just about hunting for gold, the mineral, and its value. And we did that visually by making them look rich and opulent already.
They have all the gold they'll ever need.
Right. What they're looking for, and this is the world building, see, they are seeking, I would like to make the important theological distinction between eternal life and everlasting undeath. They sound like synonyms, but they're not. They have everlasting undeath. What they're looking for is the immortal Sun to give them true eternal life, that is not just about your existence persisting, but is about a different plane of existence.
They want to eat real food.
That too.
So vampires without the drawback then.
They just want to go to Arby's. And one of the stealth benefits of packaging them completely in gold is using gold for them, and then can you move to the next slide? And then repurposing the sturdier metal, the steel-looking metals for the Sun Empire, which is part of that. Changing that expected dynamic between the invaders and the people who are in dominance.
Right, they've got really, really nice metal armor. They also, this is kind of a behind-the-scenes thing that you wouldn't necessarily get out of seeing the card set. They don't wear gold because their ancestral home was the Golden City, and they have either, it's either they, it's so sacred that they don't wear it, or we went through a bunch of different reasons that they didn't wear it, but it ended up making more sense because they left their ancestral home and now they're trying to reclaim it, and that's their reason for seeking it out. So they also have a kind of interesting cosmology that's represented in the motifs up in the right-hand corner, that sort of triple sun symbol.
What's that?
So I have a Master of Divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York, and the happiest day of my work life at Wizards of the Coast was when I got to use the words modalistic monarchianism in a work email. Wow, that sounds really sad when I say it out loud. But one of our translators wrote and said, so the immortal sun, is that sort of like the Trinity? And I said, well, actually. The threefold sun of the Sun Empire is the creative sun, the sustaining sun, and the consuming sun, which sort of correspond, as you might have noticed, to three of Magic's colors, white, green, and red. So that is the colors of the Sun Empire and the basis of their religious system, because I'm a nerd.
Speaking of the sun, so dinosaurs. Let's spend a minute talking about them too. The conversation about dinosaurs having feathers went like this: "Hey James, let's do dinosaurs with feathers." And he said, "Okay."
Yeah.
That was it.
It's close.
And so as we were looking to, give them a unique design, we were looking at a lot of jungle birds and things like that, but you'll notice that in a lot of the card art, the feather pattern actually radiates out from a bright spot to darker colors as the feathers spread out. You can see it around like attachment points around the head and the arms, and to me that made it feel more like they were themselves related to the sun and related back to the Sun Empire. Also, it looks really cool.
So I was one of the lead designers on the Eberron campaign setting in 2002 or 3. Thank you. And so I have some issues about dinosaurs, I'm afraid. Wow, it still kind of hurts to talk about.
Let it go,
Okay,
man.
buddy.
You gotta let it go.
Let it be now.
Just get to acceptance.
No, so first of all, scientific accuracy is never our goal. Feathered dinosaurs are a thing, but the particular look of that feathered dinosaurs and what dinosaurs have feathers, that was not our concern. We wanted, as Cynthia said, cool-looking dinosaurs with feathers that suggested their sun ancestry. My daughter was a huge dinosaur fan growing up, and we had a wonderful book called Extreme Dinosaurs that was full of illustrations of what scientists are thinking dinosaurs might actually have looked like, and they looked at real-world bird plumage, and we ended up with dinosaurs that looked like chickens, and nobody wants that.
And just super pragmatically, feathers introduce the visual cue that things fly. And so we had to, on a card-by-card level, be very, very careful about that. Like, that sounds silly, but that is one of the most important jobs of card art. It cannot lie to you about what it mechanically does.
That's
Got
true.
any flyers? Oh, I see feathers, so yes. No.
I mean, we did actually, at card level, have to go back and reduce the size of one of the headgear on a Sun Empire person because it looked like wings. And everyone was like, that card doesn't have flying. And I said, well, that's a revision fee.
So the other piece of my sort of internal injury about dinosaurs is naming them, because with Eberron, I felt very strongly that you do not call a songbird, the little red-breasted songbird common in North America, a turdus. You call it a robin. So why do we call this a Tyrannosaurus rex? It's the same thing. So the dinosaurs in Eberron had cool fantasy names like Swordtooth and Hammerskull and stuff like that. And initially, I went that direction for the dinosaurs in Ixalan, and I was told I was wrong. And I was. I still feel strongly that we don't want to call this a Utah raptor because it's not actually a Utah raptor. We don't want to be judged on whether it's scientifically accurate to being a Utah
And
raptor.
we would be super judged
yes.
on that front. That's true. That's not a joke.
Yeah. So we ended up in a happy medium sort of place where we have armosaurs, armored dinosaurs. Altosaurs, which are high dinosaurs. So they're not real-world dinosaur names, but they sound like real-world dinosaur names, and they tell you what they are.
Very good.
So dinosaurs were kind of, in some ways, a freebie. It's like, we all know dinosaurs are really cool. No one in the building had any lack of confidence that we could execute on dinosaurs. But then there were the Merfolk, which, as I mentioned, used to be part of the pirates. And they kind of had that sort of Peter Pan-ish identity among pirates, but breaking them out, we had to kind of re-examine, who this is for. Thank you.
Yeah, what's different about these Merfolk, and how did you come to that?
So I had, I had a lot of people in the building just, asking me over and over again, can these be as cool as pirates and dinosaurs? What are you gonna do? And so, in asking myself who this is for, I looked to players in the building, my coworkers, who were either Merfolk tribal players or people who really, really liked playing blue and green. And I asked them, what's important about those colors to you? What's important about Merfolk to you? And we came up with kind of aiming for fluidity of blue and groundedness of green. I had that in my head as kind of a mantra when we were going through all the iterations designing their look. We were looking at tropical fish, we were looking at frogs in the jungle, but really, ultimately, it came down to let's tone down the patterning, let's give them faces that are readable at card size, and let's make them really just beautiful. Let's blow out the beauty, because the set is about exploration. What's gonna make you wanna pull back the ferns and look at this thing more if you're actually exploring toward it? So I'm very happy with where we ended up here.
Yeah, and what was unexpected here, for part of the elevator pitch, again, Vampire Conquistadors was always they'll be white-black, right? Clearly they'll be white-black. No one blinked at white vampires. That's pretty weird. It's weird, right? But green merfolk, oh my God. According to a small cadre in R&D, the card frame was literally going to catch fire if we put a merfolk in a green card frame. So it took some salesmanship to reassure people that no, it'll be great.
So let me ask another show of hands questions. How many people here love playing blue-green? And how many of you love the Simic aesthetic? All right, good. I don't. But I'm not everyone.
Why don't you write about it, James?
This is why I made Jeremy the monkey on the slide.
That was a little passive-aggressive.
Welcome to Seattle. Anyway.
So back to our freebie. So we had the Merfolk, and that was an awesome challenge. But then we had pirates, and the tack for pirates was a little bit different than approaching the different colors of vampires or the different colors of Merfolk here.
You said tack, that's a sailing thing, I got that.
Oh, God. I was trying not to accidental pun today. The pirates ended up, what I wanted was for each of the crews to feel really different and spread across all the colors. I didn't want these are the blue pirates and these are the red pirates. It was more about what are their jobs, what kind of alignment can we make between them, but how can we keep them all feeling unique enough that they're interesting? So we ended up having a bunch of nicknames on the concept push for these guys. The top left was the Boot and Buckle crew, and they were kind of our black and red assassins. They were sort of more of the aggressive pirates, and then we had kind of our bumbling buffoons and our navigators and our rope pirates. I love those guys. I mean, part of making cool concept designs is taking parts of one thing and putting it on another. So we deconstructed ships and figureheads and wood pieces and sails and tackle and used them as costuming. And that ended up being a really cool solve.
What we talked about more than anything else, in my memory, with the pirates was just like keeping that fun target, right? Because one of the really great things about Ixalan is it's not an intellectual enjoyment, right? It's not factional.
Awesome.
Right. It appeals to the kid in you to some extent. It's not juvenile, but just for example, like no one likes pirates because when they were 37, they saw Pirates of the Caribbean and left that theater going, Johnny Depp was a revelation. Like, it's not about that, right? It's about what you loved as a kid and you still love. And that's why Pirates and Dinosaurs and this and that. And so making sure that from costume to aesthetic, we stayed on target to not only be clever about how we were delivering, but to never lose sight of what we were delivering.
I think the most conversations we actually had was about hats.
I
And you know
am
what?
very picky about hats.
It turns out that because of pop culture and because of the last 100 or so years, if it doesn't have a pirate hat or an eye patch or a hook or something, you don't necessarily know it's a pirate right offhand.
There was one point where the design team gave us an artifact card that was pirate hat that made equipped creature a pirate. I said no.
That's top-down, dress for the job you want.
So one other thing about the pirates, we talked earlier about exploring trope space and figuring out what pirates resonate with us about. There's a number of different things, and Cynthia touched on designing the different fleets. So, we're trying to get the freewheeling spirit of adventure on the high seas and freedom and this freedom to sail wherever you want to go. And we're trying to get the bloodthirsty Blackbeard type feel and the navigators that Cynthia also mentioned.
but mostly the other two.
There's one pirate captain who's
These are the pirates that like math. Thank God, finally.
who plunders secrets. All right, whatever.
Give me that compass.
They put me on a panel with two artists.
Okay, how does this all roll together into what actually makes it on cards?
Right.
We've gone through the factions.
So, yes,
Let's go. Let's
we
do
have
it.
the world guide at this point. We did all the concept art. James did 40,000 words of writing.
Yes, I did it. Nobody reads.
It's a big tome that we then deliver to the artists. And let's talk about card concepting.
Right, so this is the process where we start to take all of that and build it into, bring it to life in the stuff that you're actually going to see and play with. So that process begins with the stuff in the upper left, which is me expressing stuff in words. Sometimes using all caps so people understand what's important.
That's how you know James Wyatt wrote the art description, guys. If there's any artists, any of our people watching this, that's how it was a James concept, because it's got all caps.
It's a huge dinosaur
And so, then...
trying to catch a fleeing pirate. So that's the starting point.
And after James writes a million concepts, I then go through my artists and I try to assign the right person for the right job. And in this case, I gave this card to Zach Stella, who was almost a paleontologist at one point in his career. True story.
Awesome.
And he loves painting dinosaurs. Worked out really well. And what you see on the right is actually a screen cap of our internal writing to each other in our system.
It's like a Twitter feed, you read from the bottom up.
Yeah.
So Sam says awesome and Kelly says sweet, and I say, wow, yeah.
And then I jump in with what looks to be like a really terse comment, like, take out the siren, it's cluttering up the it's like, this is our internal speak.
And then we get another sketch in, and I say, and Eli says, I second JWW's and up the ante with a lol. And then Cynthia says, feather color.
which is my reminder that that's the last thing I talk to the artist about. Yeah, my comments are not nearly as fun as James's.
So we get a couple rounds of sketches, and then we end up with...
Whoa.
There we go.
Okay, next round of questions for you. If you are here in costume, please stand up. If your costume is not Magic the Gathering related, please sit down. You all rock. And of those of you standing, actually of all of you, if you see somebody on this screen right here that you want to cosplay someday, raise your hand.
Nice.
Thank you, you can sit down.
This one
And
gets
you all
extra
are
credit.
awesome and look great. This is sort of one of the last stages of taking this world that we've built and bringing it to life. Design gives us legendary creature cards and legendary planeswalker cards. Ooh. That was a mechanics joke, I'm sorry. And we create characters because our stories about characters, people resonate with characters, as you can see by people dressing up in costume of our characters and other characters.
Yeah, you can't dress up as a plane.
Oh, you could. Challenge accepted.
So characters give us a chance to express the personality of these groups in a concrete way, and they're the people that we tell stories about. So we have here 2 legendary planeswalkers, Jason Vraska. Nope, 3. 3 legendary planeswalkers. Let's go to the next slide and meet Huatli, warrior poet.
So this character, this is new for Ixalan, she is kind of the Sun Empire's Joan of Arc in a way.
So she's a planeswalker, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but Ixalan is a plane that planeswalkers can't leave. Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute.
Speculated.
Yes. So what happens when your spark ignites on a plane that you can't leave? So Huatli has this experience of her spark igniting and worlds, the veil between worlds parting before her, and my theological degree is coming out again.
Just roll with it.
Yeah, and it's a sort of transcendent experience for her because she becomes aware of worlds beyond the world that she's in, even though she can't get to them. Hence the Joan of Arc comparison. She's a young woman who's driven by these visions to find the Golden City and understand herself as part of that. And I think we have a card preview.
Should we show up? Should we show up? Yeah? Bada bing.
I'm going to let you read that, if you can. Can you read it, or do you want me to read it to you?
Read us a story.
I can't tell what you all are saying. Okay. Huatli, 3 RW, legendary planeswalker Huatli with 3 loyalty. +2, you gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. 0, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. Roar. -X, Huatli, warrior poet, deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. Creatures dealt damage this way can't block this turn. Art by Tyler Jacobson.
Tyler Jacobson also did her concept art. He was working in-house at the time, so big ups to him for helping out with Wyatt.
So the last thing that we ever do working on a set is write the stories. It's pretty hilarious because it's to a point where some of us are working about 2 years ahead and some of us are working about a month ahead. So we're working on 4 different worlds at a time as we're generating the stories that are going to go up on the website. So this is the point where we take the world that we've created and it is part of a larger story. We're telling the stories that fit it into the larger story. We're making these characters come to life in the stories and telling the story of this world all at the same time. I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can totally see Jace walking there, dragging his cloak, looking so bereft.
The J6, as Reddit has dubbed them, was spoiled yesterday. This is something that, we were in a meeting at some point. I'm just like, ooh, you know what? Can we do this? Can we put a planeswalker on basic lands? Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Well, it doesn't actually make sense with a story. Yes, it does.
It totally, it goes with the theme of exploration, and it tells Jace's story. I think it's a neat little package, and once you guys read up a little more about it, it'll make more sense. But Jace is on all 5 of a basic land cycle in Ixalan.
Getting progressively more and more desperate. So, which is actually a good point that I want to talk about. when we started talking in depth about the story of Ixalan, the members of the Gatewatch have just come off of Amonkhet, where they had their butts handed to them quite solidly by Nicol Bolas, and we really wanted this to be a point where not just Jace in this case, but everybody is at their absolute lowest. So what I like to say about this, the Ixalan story, is that if you love Jace, then you're going to be like, yay, stories about Jace. And if you maybe you're not so fond of Jace, which I gather is true of some people, then you're going to say, yay, Jace gets his butt kicked time and time again in this story. He is having the worst day. And that starts when he first arrives on Ixalan, after having his brain erased by Nicol Bolas, which is really just an occupational hazard of being a mind mage. It's happened to him before, it will probably happen to him again. But he gets here, and this awesome illustration is a depiction of the fact that he can't leave.
I would just like to point out how hard that was to concept and commission, because how do you show someone not doing something? It's actually really hard. So yeah, I'm very excited by this piece of art by Chase Stone.
The first Ixalan Magic Story episode goes up next Wednesday, so you will have an opportunity to read more about Jace's experience when he first arrives on the plane. So for now, let's show you another card. This is a 3-dub enchantment. When Ixalan's Binding enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Ixalan's Binding leaves the battlefield. Your opponents can't cast other Jace spells, or spells with the same name. Spells with the same name as the exiled card. Flavor text, very important. Jace awoke to the certainty that he was lost. Art by Chase Stone. Story Spotlight, 1 of 5. Copyright, trademark and copyright, 2017, Wizards of the Coast.
Show of hands, who reads the story spotlights? Nice.
Well, clearly we've often had the thought of Wizards needs more Jace. We're not done with that yet. But any other thoughts on Ixalan's Binding, or should we move on to a special treat?
Special treat time.
Special treat time.
Yeah.
Okay. And now for the world premiere of Ixalan trailer.
Maybe.
That's it.
Click again.
We've all heard the stories. Whoever seeks the Golden City never returns. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't scare that easy. They talk about the unknown, but the unknowns never dealt with us. The toughest bunch of lying, stinking thieves this world's ever seen. No matter who or what gets in our way, every single time we come through. Remember Scarlet Pete? He outran the jaws of death. Nearly. About Morgan Loxley using her head like that. Who knew she'd be such a natural at diplomacy? And even that mutinous dog, Bedlam Boggs. I personally made sure he was first to lay hands on our plunder. But enough talk. Let's show this island what we're made of. So raise them high, lowlifes. It's time to brave the unknown.
Did you see the dinosaurs? It's so awesome.
Johnny Depp was a revelation.
Okay, we have about 15 minutes for questions. Line up in the middle if you'd like to. We also have a couple social questions to tackle in there. With no further ado, good sir.
Hi, my name's Corey. I've been playing Magic since Onslaught. And The thing that I get the vibe from Ixalan is it actually feels like the sense of adventure is maxed out like it was in the first Zendikar. And I wanted to know if there's anything that you pulled from that or felt like similar like exploration and adventuring.
Yeah, we haven't talked very much about mechanics, but Zendikar and Ixalan have in common mechanics that support the idea of exploration. In the Zendikar, it was landfall. Here it is explore, which there is a mechanics preview article up on our website, but basically explore is reveal or look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you can put it in your hand. If it's not, it can go on the top of your library or in your graveyard, and the creature that explores gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Got it?
Yeah, sorry. No, I meant world building, not mechanics, though.
Oh,
No, I mean, I think, we're living in a world now where we have to put out new worlds often enough that we're going to find ourselves using some of the same spaces, but we definitely felt from the beginning like Ixalan was a different kind of adventure, and we're, again, pulling from some of those different trope spaces. So we might be able to have a few different adventure-type planes, or planes that make you feel like you're going on an adventure.
Yeah, there were, if I had to, the space is similar, right, of exploration of this impressive vistas of encountering things you haven't seen before. The way I kind of encapsulate Zendikar is as you explore, there's always somewhere to climb to or somewhere to fall to, right? It's a very, very three-dimensional space. With Ixalan, we really wanted to conjure the impressiveness of truly unseen things. Like, for example, we designed a lot of new plants, a lot of really impressive foliage that we made up so that it's not like, yeah, a palm tree, great. It's like, no, I really haven't seen this before. Like, we really want the audience to feel like they are encountering new things the further inland they go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. I was wondering, because Mark Rosewater's talked on his blog about how there was some player pushback to not see the Gatewatch as much every set. Was Bolus defeating them and separating them a sort of a design decision, or was that more of a creative decision, or was it kind of a melding of both?
it was a creative decision made a long time ago.
Cool.
Yeah, we work so far in advance. I know Jeremy was mentioning our 5-year plan earlier, and James talked a little bit about working on story ahead. I was in a meeting the other day, and I realized that the stuff we were talking about, when that set's actually public, I will be deep in my first midlife crisis.
I'll see you there.
I'll bring the drinks.
Spring chickens.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Hey, you had mentioned mechanics of the game kind of constraining what you can do with the art. How much does that constrain what you do when you're creating the story?
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
From the art perspective, what it does is make certain what would in real-time media be very powerful, like a crisis of conscience or the sudden realization of a betrayal. You have to find a way to externalize all of that stuff, right? Like watching someone make a face, like this is not a good black discard spell. Right? We have a few of those from the past. So always trying to push to make sure that, especially for those story spotlights, whatever the beat is, if it is a crisis of conscience, okay, because what happened? You know, trying to build around whatever that beat is that, cards aren't very nuanced, right? We do as absolutely much as we can with the juxtaposition of title, of image, of mechanics. We're pretty good at that.
And flavor text.
And flavor text. And card number. But yeah, it is a very real constraint, just especially at the story construction level, if you in fact want the cards to care about that. Like the story spotlights are very good examples.
There are some through lines, like some of our major themes carry through all three: mechanics, world building, and story. Like exploration, for example, is a great example in Ixalan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey there, I was wondering how much you could go into depth on the specific geography of Ixalan. Are we talking about, like, is this a small island that people are all exploring around? Is there like the conquistadors came from somewhere. Are these like separate continents? And what's really like the main part of driving them toward this, like now as opposed to any time in the past?
It is an island continent with a large inland sea, and you will see a map of it.
Yeah.
We're gradually revealing it on our website as we speak. But it's the first time we've done a map of a magic plane since, Dominaria.
It was Dominaria.
There is a continent across the sea that the Legion of Dusk vampire conquistadors have come from. We're not really talking about it because the focus for this set story is on Ixalan. What's driving their exploration is fundamentally the quest for the immortal sun, which is a powerful magical artifact that all 4 of these groups have legends and past connections to. The news of its resurfacing, or wow, maybe those aren't legends after all, is what is driving a lot of the action here.
I will say that the size of the place is mostly unknown because pirates actually made the map and it wasn't the mathy ones.
Can the goblin even read that map?
What is a mile?
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.
So, good God, sorry. We're working with a lot of dinosaurs in this set. That makes me curious. Exactly how long has who in your office been pitching, let's do dinosaurs, let's do dinosaurs, let's do dinosaurs, that is finally vindicated that you're printing dinosaurs?
So it's one of those creature types that there are sometimes, just due to back catalog, things become a more difficult pitch. Like there are creatures in especially original Zendikar that could have easily gotten the dinosaur creature type, right? And then every time it comes up, someone's like, nope, this and that card, even if it's 3, even if it's 2, sometimes even if it's 1, would have had that creature type, so we're not doing it. And it kind of becomes a blocker and becomes this silly reason not to do the most fun thing. And so in the early explorations of, Sam Burley was doing early visualizations of the lands of this place, especially because I wanted, this is before Cynthia had taken over, I wanted to see how interesting the interactions between the water and the shore could be. I didn't just want, so just explore that. And then I really started to like this kind of foggy inland, like this kind of Kong Skull Island sort of thing, where it appears to be more dangerous the further you go in because you just can't see from the shore. And then just looking at those things, somebody was like, this dinosaurs could be here. And
Didn't Sam literally just put a tail into one of them?
well, what I asked Sam to do and what he did, and just convinced everyone, I believe, immediately, I was like, show me a Hydra made of T-Rex. And he did that. And we were like, yep, dinosaurs are here.
We're starting to win more and more of those creature type fights.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
All right, for the sake of everyone on the internet being confused no longer, Ixalan is the name of the continent and the plane, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool, thanks.
The internet thanks you.
We are all gonna sleep tonight.
So when you guys were concepting Ixalan as this cool, exploration plane with all these dinosaurs and pirates and all that nonsense, was it initially part of your plan to be like, oh, by the way, planeswalkers, you can't leave, or did that just come a part of as a creative decision, being like, oh, and this needs to be added too, or was it initially there?
It's all part of the story.
It is all part of the story. The real elegance of that beat happening here is it is a bigger version of what it means to be marooned, right? Like, what does it mean to be a planeswalker that's marooned? You can just screw off somewhere else and go back to Ravnica or whatever. Well, no, you can't. You're honestly marooned. But yes, this is, it's all part of a plan.
Thank you.
Pop back to Ravnica for a latte.
Yeah.
Hi, I wanted to ask about specifically the character of Vraska, because she first appeared on Ravnica. How did the decision-making process go into incorporating her into Ixalan?
It's all part of the story.
I will say that her look here is pretty cool. Like, we took a lot of the same shape language from her original design, and we actually put her in a piratey costume.
And you know what she did? She petrified the captain of the ship she stole and strapped him to the bowsprit as a figurehead. Come on, that's so awesome.
All right, thank you.
Just want to mention we have time for just a couple more questions, but for those of you who are still standing in line after these next two, please come up and chat with us post if you'd like. Thank you for standing.
Okay. What can you tell us about the origins of vampirism on Ixalan, and how does that affect the whole quest to find the Golden City and sort of fulfill this wish for eternal life?
I'm looking at Ari Levitch in the audience there, a member of our story team, who was a history teacher in a past life and did most of the writing for the Legion of Dusk. It's complicated. It is fundamentally a piece of what it means to be a noble in the Empire of Dusk across the sea. So it's a right that's reserved for people of noble lineage, not something they do to just everybody. And it's a sacred rite, part of their church.
They have blood fasts and other kinds of rituals that they do. So one of the interesting things that, again, you just wouldn't necessarily get from looking at the cards is when we were designing their costumes, I was obsessed with the idea that they had white collars. It looked conquistador, it looked of the period, but it also meant that you could tell if they'd eaten.
For more details on vampirism in Ixalan, I will refer you to The Art of Magic the Gathering, Ixalan, coming out in January.
Thank you. So Mark Rosewater revealed on the blog there's no pirate dinosaurs. Why do you hate money?
No, wait. There is nothing preventing you, when you're playing a game of Magic, to have from having your dinosaur crew your pirate ship. That does not mean it's our job to show it to you on a card.
Thanks.
And just to be fair, that is actually, kind of treacherous waters for us to make commentary on, because you were born a dinosaur. Being a pirate is a lifestyle choice.
Okay,
So I was wondering about. So the vibe I'm kind of getting from the inclusion of Vraska, of a couple sets ago Nahiri, is something I'm feeling is that the Gatewatch might be forming or gaining a sort of enemy team, kind of like the Legion of Doom. Is this sort of the theme you're going for? Because from the card text we've seen in former spoilers, it appears that Vraska is working for Nicol Bolas already. Is there sort of an enemy team that you're kind of forming, or not really?
Well, there's certainly an enemy mastermind, as you say, and part of the way that masterminds work is through agents.
And on that note, we need to wrap. We have 1 minute left. We have Ixalan pre-release coming up just so soon, September 23rd, 24th.
3 weeks.
Please jump out and play. And if anybody has more questions, you guys in line or whatever, we'll hang out after. Thank you so much, everyone in the room and everybody on Twitch.
Thank you, guys.